Toblerone on, I think.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Breckland Planning for today. Could I first of all start with what we call our general housekeeping. First of all, fire exits. There are two fire exits quite clearly marked in this side of the room. There is another one at the end of the corridor near the lavatories and, of course, the door that you came in by. I have not been told of any exercises today, so if we hear the alarm, we will treat it as genuine and we will vacate the building and congregate in the car park and wait for the fire engines to arrive so we can have some entertainment today. Phones and mobile devices, could I ask you to switch them to silent or switch them off? If your phone does go off, it's a fine of £10 to the chairman's charity. Now, that's not me as the chairman of this committee, it's the chairman of the council, who also happens to be my vice chairman, and I'm not 100% sure of his chosen charity. So, Peter, if you'd like to tell us.
No, it's going to be a big announcement at next week's council.
Wow, so your £10 for doing business during my meeting will go to a mystery charity. As long as it's not the Vice Chairman of Planning Fund, then we'll be okay. So that's that. Procedure, when each item is called, I've got a list of people who have registered to speak. They'd like to come and sit on the right-hand side, which has been, the position has been displayed by one of our councillors who's quite happily come in just to show you where to sit, and then he'll leave. My officers will give a presentation, and then I will instruct you of your times to speak, then the members, and we may have a little bit of summing up, and then we'll go for a vote. I'd like to introduce my team for the day. On my left-hand side, I have Mike Horn, who's our solicitor to the council. I have Simon Wood, who's got a lovely big long title. I'm not going to try and do it, but he's the head honcho. On the right-hand side, I have my right-hand woman, Rebecca Collins, who has been off for a while, but she's back to support me now, so we should get things right now. Sorry, Simon. And we have a new guy who nice and shiny just at the packaging, which is Ed Small. Just stand up for us, Ed. As you can see, Ed Small. You can sit down now, mate. Thank you. No. Chris Hobson at the end. These are all my planning team, by the way. At the back, I have Barbara Greengrass. Stand up, Barbara, because they won't see you because you're only a short little thing. Thank you. And Matthew, you can stand up as well, just so you don't feel left out. And that's Matthew. I also have Becky Harris, who's been our usher for today. She's also one of our planning support officers, and she's seen you all into the building. And Julie Britton down here from Democratic Services, who will be keeping us all in order and telling me when to shut up. Okay, let's make a start then. Item number 1 this morning are the minutes of the meeting held on, which I haven't got that there, but anyway, minutes you've got them in your pack. Does anyone need to raise a question, or can I agree to have those signed? Sorry, darling? 18th of April. I thought you were making an appointment to see me. You don't need to. So they were the 18th of April. Those were the minutes from the meeting we held in Thetford. Everyone happy that I signed them off? Sorry, Councillor Attwell.
Does anybody need to abstain? Because there's a lot of new members in here.
Yeah, well, if you don't have to, they wouldn't raise anything. So I'm just seeing if anyone's got any raise, or can I happily sign them off? Thank you. Let me just do that, get that bit of paper out of the way. There's one piece of paper less for me to worry about. Thank you. So, next item 2, apologies and substitutes, please, Julie.
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies from Councillor Brindle and Councillor Harvey, and Councillor Land is in attendance as a substitute.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much, Councillor Land, for coming in today. We appreciate that. Item 3, declarations of interest and or representations received. We will take them as each item is raised. Item 4 on our agenda, Chairman's announcements. Well, first of all, welcome to the new members, and we are being live streamed, so some of our other new members and our substitutes may be sitting at home watching and hoping to learn from all you old dogs, or previous members, should I say. So welcome to the others, and we have got back with us Councillor Bambridge, who has much experience, but we're going to try and keep him in his box this time. And we welcome, obviously we've got Councillor Anscombe and Councillor Land here as well. I think that's, no, you're not here to aggravate me. I'm ready to throw things at you. So that's an introduction to them. Now, this is something quite urgent. We have got a panel, a chairman's panel tomorrow, which you're welcome to log on to and watch. But we are in need of panel members for future meetings. So what I would ask you to do, if you're not 100% sure, it honestly is not that strenuous. If you'd like to go on and watch tomorrow, and then if you feel like you'd like to take part, then please let our team know, and we'll get you fixed up for some of our slots that we need filling. So we are getting a little bit desperate on that. Also this morning, I'd like to welcome our 4 guys at the back. I'm going to do it. You know I'm going to do it. Just stand up, guys. These are work experience. Stand up. Oh, it's not that strenuous. There we go, look. These are our 4 work experience guys. You can sit down now. Well done. That's your big strenuous bit for the day. Work experience, you never know, they might want to make a career in local authorities. If not, get a job somewhere else and become a councillor. And then instead of sitting at the back of the room, you can come and sit here like these chaps here, and chaps and chapesses. Okay, good. That's that. Well done. So we're going to move swiftly on to item 5, request to defer applications. Do we have any? Yep. We do. He says with big surprise. Could you tell us?
We requested before the meeting to defer application 9B in Dereham 15 Yaxham Road. This is because we need to seek some clarification over land ownership for the Highways Authority. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any items of urgent business? No. Okay, so item 7, local plan update. We'll hand you over to Simon Wood, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of things to update on. As members will know, particularly members who have been here for some time, there was an examination in April into the policy INF03 in the local plan, which required us to have submitted a full review of the local plan policies relating to housing, employment, space standards and gypsies and travellers by November last year. For various reasons, it was not possible to do that, and the council took the view to start its full local plan update. That examination was held in April, and on the 14th of June, we received the inspector's interim report. In the interim report, the inspector supported the council's position in relation to the removal of the deadline in relation to policy INF03, and was satisfied that the council was able to demonstrate that it was making progress on the local plan update. That the examination, the report, really typifies good work by the planning policy team and the planning policy manager, and is an endorsement of the approach that the council took to address what was quite a complicated issue, and it was not without risk. The interim report is available on the website, but if you've got any questions, then come and speak to myself or Andy Darcy, and hopefully we can answer them. The inspector has indicated that she expects to have her final report sent to us in the second half of this month. We will have 2 weeks in which to fact check that report. It will then go back to the planning inspectorate, and they will issue it, I was going to say at their leisure, but they have no deadline within which to issue it, but hopefully it would be relatively quickly. We are timetabling going back to council on the September meeting, because it will have to be a matter that is agreed and adopted by full council as a material change to the policies within the local plan. The second item is around the local plan update, and we are seeking to have member sessions to discuss the issues arising out of the issues and options consultation with members late August, September time. I would encourage members to try and attend these sessions, as I think they are an important vehicle both for members to put their views across as to the direction they would like the local plan to go in, to clearly identify for officers the issues and the opportunities they see within the district, and for officers to be able to take those matters on board when starting to consider allocations and policies such as settlement boundaries and the development strategy. So I would strongly encourage members to attend and try and get that message out there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. It's open to questions from members. I've got Councillor Atwell and then Councillor Kittle-Morris.
Thank you, Chairman. That's obviously very welcome news on INF 03. Can you confirm then that those affected policies that we were supposed to review under INF 03, will they now carry full weight for the life of the existing local plan till the new local plan is adopted?
The policies will continue to carry full weight, so the local plan itself will continue to carry full weight. There are, of course, issues and potential circumstances if, and it's a big if, the council fails to have a 5-year housing land supply, then that will affect relevant housing policies, as members will be aware of. But otherwise, yes, it will carry full weight. The NPPF recommends that you review a local plan every 5 years. We are timetabling our local plan update to have concluded in 2024-25. So, yeah, at the moment, that's the scenario.
Councillor Kittle-Morris, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to endorse what Simon said about the hard work put in by the planning policy team under Andrew Darcy. It's a great achievement, and I think also it was helped by a very pragmatic inspector who actually produced a report which I've read in detail, which vindicates all the things that we've been saying about the INF 03 update. So I'm very pleased to see that happen. I do have some general questions. You want me to save those to the end of the meeting?
Do I?
Well, I don't know. Do you?
You can do if you wish. Yeah, leave them till the end then.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they might be talking about someone who we don't want heard. No, we're not doing it in secret. No, let's hold it till the end. I understand where you're coming from. Any other questions from members at all, so we can move on? No? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so following on now, we are then going to go, our deferred applications, we will be blending some into the agenda, but we're going to go to our schedule, which we're going to take Snetterton, which is 3PL 2022-1166F. And I've got Councillor Philip Cohen, who's the ward rep, to speak, and also Alex Munro, who's the agent. If you'd like to come and sit on the right-hand side, sir. And our presentation officer for this one is our new man. It's Ed Small, please. So Ed's getting ready to rock and roll, so I'll hand over to Ed for the presentation.
Good morning all. So this is a planning application for a pallet storage and recycling facility, including the demolition of the existing building and replacement with a new workshop, managed storage, landscaping and means of enclosure. So the application site is currently a disused brownfield site with varying former uses such as a restaurant building as well as a former caravan sales premises. The proposed site will utilise the existing access points in an anti-clockwise direction. The site is bounded by the southbound dual carriageway of the A11 on its northwestern boundary edge. The total site area is 4,834.1 square meters. So the application site is adjacent to the Snetterton Heath General Employment Area, and it's located within the A11 Tech Corridor. Surrounding the site to the south are varying industrial businesses located within the Snetterton General Employment Area. To the northeast of the site is a mixed-use Snetterton service station. To the north of the site, on the opposite side of the A11 dual carriageway, is a builder's merchant's yard with outside storage. So these pictures here, what's that?
It's just going to take time.
Slow, is it? Okay. So these are just some existing photos of, or these are just some photos of the existing site, and yeah, it just characterises a disused brownfield element of the site, with that former restaurant building being the distinct feature of the existing site. And here's just a close-up of that restaurant building. You can see in a minute, yeah, there we are, some existing parking spaces on the northwestern corner. So for the proposed site plan, as you can see, the general layout of the site comprises of main built structures, which are the proposed open-sided main shed, as shown as a squared shape to the north, and a proposed office building being located on the northwestern corner of the site with the designated staff parking area. There are two designated external pallet stacking areas on the southwestern and eastern sides of the site boundary. There are two HGV designated parking spaces on the northeastern side. There is also a designated loading area for the HGVs that utilise the existing access and egress points to the site. The pallet storage will be located around the periphery of the site, with the central parts of the site used for reclamation and sorting, vehicle access and open storage. The proposal also involves an extensive landscape buffer surrounding most of the site boundary to mitigate the site's visual prominence from the A11 corridor. The proposed main shed building is to be used as a workshop, which is used for recycling of pallets, and is a typical open-sided steel frame building with a pitched roof. The gross internal area for the main shed is 210 square metres, and the proposed height from ground to eaves is 5.5 metres, and from ground to ridge it's 7.33 metres. The proposed pallet of materials for the main shed building are white painted blockwork plinth, and large painted cladding for the walls, zinc effect metal roofing with standing ceilings and matching flashings, and black UPVC gutters and downpipes. And here's just a floor plan of the workshop. So for the proposed staff area, there are proposed two-storey modular building which is to be used as the main office building for the staff. The two-storey unit comprises of a staff canteen and facilities on the ground floor, and an open plan office and meeting area on the first floor. The third single-storey unit, which is linked to the main office's buildings, first floor via a balustrade walkway over roof, will contain staff showers and toilets. The proposed height of the main office building is 5 metres from ground to the roof parapet, and the gross external area for the office complex is 45.5 square metres. The proposed palette of materials of the modular building are the larch coloured cladding for the walls, new softwood windows, and a black stainless steel to a roof terrace with a circular top rail. And here are just some floor plans of the staff area. So in terms of proposed contextual views, the proposed designs of the main shed and modular building are relatively simplistic in their appearance, with a selection of hit-and-miss timber cladding throughout, which gives the impression of an agricultural built form, through the type of materials and neutral colouring which are typically used for a storage and recycling facility of this nature and are considered acceptable for the proposed usage. So the proposals will utilise the two existing access and egress points to the site that sit directly on the roundabout. Given the number of staff envisaged, which is about 10, and the number of HGVs as a number of 2, as well as the single lighter van vehicle type, there would appear to be adequate space on the site for parking and returning of these vehicles without causing conflict with the operation of a roundabout. The anticipated level of HGV movements is not considered to be at a level that would cause severe adverse impacts on the operational safety of the highways network. So the Norfolk County Council Highways Authority formally consulted as part of the application and were content on the applicant using the existing in and out access arrangements and subsequently raised no objection to the proposal. They stated if the council was to grant approval on this application, then conditions to ensure the proposed parking, servicing, loading and unloading turning areas are carried out in accordance with the plans provided, as well as a condition to ensure that signage is provided to demarc the means of ingress and egress. National Highways are also consulted on this application and also raised no objection to the proposal. So these photos are taken from the far northwestern corner of the site. So significant consideration has been given in regard to the site's visual prominence from the A11. And as you can see from these pictures taken, the site is only a stone's throw away from the dual carriageway on an elevated bank. And whilst there are existing soft landscaping features adjacent to the northern boundary, you can see there are inconsistent gaps within the existing buffer where the site would be more visually prominent. From this angle, you can just about see the existing former restaurant building from the A11, which is screened by vegetation from the highway's verge. With a taller main shed introduced on the northern boundary, as well as the external pallet stacking areas, it is very important to screen these proposed features off and to mitigate their visual impact upon the surrounding area. So a planning condition will be imposed to restrict the height of the external pallet stacking areas to 3 metres, to mitigate their visual prominence and to ensure they are subservient to a proposed landscaping buffer. And a further planning condition will also be imposed to ensure that the external pallet stacking will be restricted to the designated areas as shown on the site plan provided. So to ensure the proposals are sympathetic to the landscape character, whilst recognising intrinsic character and beauty of the countryside, landscaping proposals were requested to surround the entirety of the site boundary, and the applicant has supplied to the council a detailed landscaping scheme with extensive boundary screening to mitigate the site's visual impact. The main feature of the proposed boundary screening is a 3 metre high mixed native hedgerow and trees, which is to be planted above the highway's verge in front of a 3 metre high timber fence which surrounds the northern and eastern site boundary. This is where the site is most visually prominent from the A11 and will create a green wall and wildlife corridor to visually soften and screen the pallets and as well as the proposed buildings. According to the landscaping proposals, the planting will be subject to an annual inspection each summer for the first 5 years to ensure that any dead, dying or diseased plants are removed. And these plants that will be removed will be replaced with the same size or species as per the planting specification. So the council's tree officer has had sight of the landscaping proposals and raised no objection other than to request that the smallest tree species listed should be replaced for species with a larger final height and spread, which would further screen the site in the future. And this amendment can be dealt through discharging a planning condition imposed. So overall, the landscaping proposals are considered as an effective means of screening the site from the A11 and the surrounding area and are sympathetic to the local landscape character. It must be considered that to the north of the site, on the opposite side of the A11 dual carriageway, is a builder's merchant's yard operated by a storage and distribution business that was recently permitted. the approved height of this main building, which is a Travers Perkins site, is from ground to ridge 8.54 metres, which is of a similar height to the proposed main building under this application, with just over a metre in difference. To mitigate its visual prominence from the A11 and the slip roads, a condition was also imposed to restrict the height of the storage of external materials to 2.4 metres in the storage area, which is immediately adjacent to its south-eastern site boundary. It runs alongside the A11 dual carriageway. The landscaping scheme introduced under this current proposal is considered to be a betterment of the scheme on the photo, as it will be more effective at screening the visual impact of the site from the A11. So it must also be noted that during the first consultation period, the Snetterton Parish Council objected to the proposal on the grounds of the proposed ecological impact on the existing bats, as well as the light disruption. In light of these comments, the external floodlights were omitted from the scheme, as well as a revised bat survey were produced to consider the comments of the Parish Council, as well as the Council's ecology team. So during the reconsultation period, both Environmental Health and Place Services Ecology raised no objection to the proposal, subject to conditions, and the Parish Council provides no additional comments during the reconsultation period. In terms of flood risk and drainage, the site is in a low area at risk of flooding, and it is considered that the proposal will not lead to an increase in the risk of flooding. Precise details of foul and surface water drainage will also be secured through planning conditions. So overall, the application is accordingly recommended for approval, subject to various planning conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ed. Okay, it's open to the questions from our visitors. Councillor Cohen, would you like to go first or last?
Last, please, Chairman.
No problem. Thank you very much. So, Alex Munro, please, who's the agent. You've got 3 minutes, sir.
Is that my mic on? Is that working? Yep. Mr Chair, members of the committee, first I'd like to thank your officers for working proactively and productively with my client and myself through the course of the application to allow us to arrive at such a strong and clear positive recommendation to members within the committee report. Since the submission of the application, we've successfully worked towards producing a scheme which will secure the productive and commercially viable reuse of a long-time derelict plot of land on the edge of Snetterton Heath employment area. This has been done on behalf of our client, the owner of the site, and somebody who brings extensive experience in pallet recycling and distribution to a location perfectly suited for a logistics business such as his own. In doing so, we've overcome all the initial concerns raised by consultees, as obviously confirmed in your office's presentation, in particular in respect of ecology through the specification of a sensitive scheme of lighting. We've also taken on board the detailed recommendations of your officers to propose a scheme of design that will be unobtrusive and befitting of what is considered a gateway site to Snetterton. At the same time, your officers have obviously remained appreciative this is a functional use proposed on the edge of an extensive commercial area. In which case, through joint working, we've agreed a balance in terms of the landscaping scheme and restrictions on storage that allows our client to maintain a healthy and busy business whilst improving the appearance of the site through the inclusion of a detailed scheme of landscaping and restrictions on the height of the stored pallets. Then, the design of the buildings is contemporary in nature, utilising natural materials such as timber cladding, which will ensure they secure a development which is both functional and an improvement on the existing dilapidated restaurant. Most importantly, the application proposal will help an existing locally based business grow and thrive whilst remaining local. The application will in fact bring my client's operation into Breckland from Beccles, and an operation which, as it expands, will eventually employ up to 10 staff, representing a boost to the local economy. There are no downsides to my client's proposals, only benefits. These include the regeneration of a prominent and currently derelict site, the relocation of a logistic-based business in a highly accessible location next to an existing commercial zone, the relocation of an existing business to Breckland, and the ability for that business to now grow and thrive, creating new local job opportunities in the process. all in a way that is subject to no technical objections and is fully policy compliant. On this basis, I respectfully ask members of the committee to support your office's recommendation and approve my client's application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cohen, 3 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. You might wonder why I'm here, actually, given everything you've heard thus far. Firstly, I'd like to just draw your attention to the officer's report. And in paragraph 2.2, it says the application site is considered to be a key visual gateway. Now, my understanding of key visual gateway means it needs to stand out and shout about itself and announce itself. A gateway to the principal employment area of Snetterton Heath. Yet, of course, what we're hearing is this is an unobtrusive building, that in fact it's been completely screened by landscaping proposals. And the two things for me don't sit very happily together. If we want a gateway building, we want a building that's actually going to say something about Breckland and not a hedge, which is what this is actually doing. Rarely have I seen a planning application which relies so heavily on landscape conditions and landscape proposals. I mean, we have a 3-metre high fence in front of which is planted a 3-metre high native hedgerow. And I just wonder how long it's going to take for the 3-metre high hedgerow to reach 3 metres height, and during the course of its life, how it's going to be maintained, how it's going to be replaced with species after 5 years which are going to be of the size that were originally planted, which will leave some certain holes. And of course, if we look deeper into the application and the conditions that are proposed, the fence is required to be replaced during its life, so it retains its 3-metre height. Yet, of course, it's covered in climbers. It's actually sitting amongst trees that are heavily planted, and it's sitting in front of a hedge, which when we start to take the fence down to replace it, is going to actually destroy and perhaps compromise the landscaping, which is absolutely the key proposal behind this proposal that's before you today. Without the landscaping condition, this proposal would not be acceptable under any circumstances. And I find it quite strange that we are leaning heavily on landscape, which by its very nature lives, dies, is replanted, has to be managed in order to allow a building to go ahead on, as I stress, what our officers say is a key visual gateway into this prime employment area of Snetterton Heath. It seems to me that we're trying too hard to allow this application to go ahead. So, in conclusion, I would urge you to think very hard about what we're trying to achieve in our planning process when we get planning applications where the building itself does not actually meet our own expectations. And as I say, a key gateway site to the employment area is totally reliant on planting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Yes, Rebecca's itching to say something. Off you go.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for clarity for all members, as officers, we're not saying that the landscaping makes the development acceptable. The landscaping is there to soften the development. We've put significant weight on the existing business use of the site, and that there is an existing use and an existing unsightly use in this location, and that it's established a business use in this location, the materials that they've used on the business. So just to be really clear, we are not saying that without the landscaping the development would not be acceptable in this location. We think that the principles established by the existing use of the site and that the materials and building on this side mirrors that on the other side, which is also acceptable. But the landscaping itself will help to soften the development and is an important part of the proposals. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. It's open to questions from members. I've got Councillor Bambridge, then Councillor Clark.
Thank you. Well, I think the two questions I had in my mind before I came and I wrote down during the presentation were exactly those that were raised by Councillor Cohen, except I've got them the opposite way round. The first one was about the landscaping. You made issue of the Builders Merchant Yard, the opposite side of the highway, and I see that the landscaping has not been completed on that. Whether it was a condition, I don't know, but from the photograph there was no landscaping there. So I'm just wondering how enforceable we're going to make this landscaping, because I don't think it is acceptable without the landscaping. I appreciate what you said, Rebecca, but I think that is very important to this site. And the second point is this council's policy of that being the prime development site within the district. We're putting a pallet store on a prime site. And is that actually the policy of this council? And is that indeed a planning matter? You'll correct me on that, Chairman. Thank you.
So just to be really clear, we're not aware of any landscaping proposals for the site on the opposite. It is as shown on the photo, so there's not an enforcement issue there in terms of conditions. With regards to any conditions on developments, providing they're worded correctly, which they will be, they are enforceable and a requirement to be carried out. So we can enforce those as a council for the landscaping to be put in place if the development was acceptable. With regards to the development site itself, it actually sits outside the allocation. When you saw the plan, it actually sits just outside the allocation. It therefore is an ECO4 matter, so it's development outside an allocation, and therefore you need to consider what are the other reasons for development in this location. And obviously we've put significant weight on the fact that there is an existing business operation in this location that's been unused for a number of years, that is currently very unsightly. It's not a good entrance to the application site. This will tidy up the site. We can control the buildings and the material, and the landscaping will soften it, in our view. Obviously, members, you're completely entitled to take a different view.
I just ask a supplementary, Chairman. Can we specify that the landscaping, as approved by the officers, be very early in the development of the site and not at the end?
So currently the trigger that we're proposing is that the landscaping is implemented prior to works proceeding above slab level. We can't make it a prior to commencement condition. We've had this conversation before, members, because obviously they need to get onto the site, bring the materials onto the site and get started on the site. That is my view. I think, you know, prior to slab level is probably as early as we can get that landscaping in. And obviously, as Councillor Cowan pointed out, that will take a bit of time to mature. We accept that. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a question for the officer and potentially also views of the applicant. I know the notice that the Tree and Countryside consultant doesn't have specific objections. He's made suggestions around different types of trees provide a large range of screening. I can't see that incorporated in any conditions, but notwithstanding that, I don't know whether the applicant is able to take account of those, notwithstanding that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Apologies. Following those comments from our tree officer, the landscaping scheme was amended to incorporate suggestions of Richard Fisher to incorporate some larger specimen trees along the boundary. So from the latest landscaping proposal, you'll see the hedgerow interspersed then trees along there. Just so that reflects those comments. I think that was it, wasn't it?
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions from members before I take the vote? Councillor Plummer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Has it been taken into consideration that this building is timber clad? The one opposite Travis Perkins is green low profile sheeting, which I think stands out terrifically much more. I'm sorry, I don't know if our Councillor Cowan wants to comment on this. I mean, they've tried hard to try and blend it into what I class as the countryside. If I remember rightly, as you come up the A11 on that side, you've got enormous great warehouses on the left-hand side just before that, which is not screened. They're not screened at all. They're in full view. We've got a power station on the other side, which is in full view. And I don't think the trees will grow tall enough to hide that. So we're getting bogged down by what I class as periphery of what planning is about. if that wooden fence is put there and the trees, I agree, will take time to grow, this will enhance as we move on. So are we getting sort of bogged down with what is going to be there, but what is already there before you get to that? I'd like people to take consideration of that, please.
Yep, I see where you're coming from. I understand fully. Okay, thank you. Any further questions from members at all? No, thank you. So for this item for Snetterton, 3PL 2022-1166F, your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? That's unanimous. Okay, this item is approved. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay, we're going to move to our next item at Banham, which is 3PL 2022-0247F. I have speakers for this one. I've got Keith Drury, who's the Vice Chairman of the Banham Parish Council, Kerry Bellum and Verity Spencer, who are objectors, Ian Hill, Martin Doughty, Nigel Robson, who are the agents, and Councillor Stephen Askew, who is the ward rep. So if you'd like to come and sit on the right-hand side, please. That's it. As soon as you've finished playing musical chairs, we'll carry on. Okay, terrific. Barbara, it's over to you, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just before we begin, members will have received a supplementary which was provided after my report. There's also been, since then, additional petitions have been submitted with 71 signatures, and also one additional objection stating that since the site was allocated, much has changed. There has been a flooding event in 2020, and it states that the site will cause flooding, that this will cause flooding. If I can also add an update to my report, I did omit further comments from the Public Rights of Way officer received in October 22, and they have said, having seen the legal extent of the Public Right of Way 23, they are content that it is not encroached upon, and so there is no objection. So moving on then, we've got 48 dwellings. It's a full application with public open space and associated works. So here we have the site on the edge of Banham Village. You can see it spans either side of Greyhound Lane, which runs kind of through the middle. So the site lies within the Banham housing allocation. You can see here it covers the areas in purple, so all three areas in purple. And the allocation is for residential development of at least 42 dwellings to the north of Greyhound Lane, with access from Wayland Way and provision of open space to the south of Greyhound Lane. The policy lists 8 criteria, which are addressed throughout the officer report, and it's considered that all of these are complied with. The existing site. So this is the proposed site plan. So the layout shows the open space south of Greyhound Lane in line with the allocation policy, with an attenuation basin next to the road on the northern side, and a provision of 48 dwellings with 2 access points, one from Gamer Close in the south and one from Wayland Way to the north. If I might just show you some photographs, members. So here we are on Greyhound Lane looking at the site. So the hedge is within the site, and so the photograph on the right will basically be where the attenuation basin will be situated. This is looking to the site from the north, looking back southwards. So on the left-hand side photograph, the houses will be in front of you. Again, just further up Greyhound Lane, looking back towards the site. Again, on Greyhound Lane, this where you see that crossing point is where the footpath will cross to the public open space to the south. Just a picture from within the site, looking north this time. And that hedge you can see is the hedge that borders Greyhound Lane. And this is a picture from within Gamer Close. And you can see on there, just point out the on-road parking at the minute, because that was one of the concerns of some of the residents. So I'll take you back. So the Banham Housing Allocation Policy requires new open space, including an area of play to the south. And you can see that that's been provided here. The topography of the land will not change, and the play area has been located to the north, with an orchard is proposed and extensive landscaping and wildflower meadows. So it's considered that this complies with Policy ENV4 and the Site Allocation Policy. Sorry, if I can just show you some visualisations of the site. This is provided by the applicant. This is a visualisation from Greyhound Lane looking south. This is within the site as you come through Gamer Close into the site. That's within the site. So in terms of the housing mix, the mix is set out in my report and provides for 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses with 8 single-storey properties. 10 properties will be affordable housing. Although this falls short of the required 25% provision, the scheme has been independently assessed and concludes that the scheme is viable with 10 units proposed. So these are just some, I'll just take you through some of the house designs. This is just a selection. And some street scenes. So the top one is the houses as they sit next to the houses in Wayland Way, the top slide, and again the bottom slide as they sit next to the houses in Wayland Way. And then the top slide is the houses to the northern boundary. And the bottom 2 slides are as they sit next to the houses in Gamer Close. So the houses are constructed using red and white bricks and pan tiles and share a similar architectural profile. The plans have been amended to include less use of white brick and on less prominent facades in order to better assimilate into the surrounding landscape. Bungalows are sited to visually sensitive areas and on entering the site from Gamer Close to reflect the built form there. The main views of the site will be from the north, approaching the site along Greyhound Lane. New native hedging is proposed and existing hedging and trees is retained. Properties have gaps between and views will be of gable ends. That's your top slide there, your top picture there. 2 bungalows are proposed next to the attenuation basin from the main views as you come closer to the village edge. I'll just go back, show you there. So it's accepted that the scheme will create a new residential estate on the edge of the village. The scheme does retain as much as possible of existing landscape features and significant new planting, new open space and attenuation basin, which will be seasonally wet, but with appropriate planting to maximise biodiversity. The scheme has been designed to minimise its visual impact. Overall, the character of the area we consider is preserved. In terms of residential amenity, there's considered to be acceptable garden depths and spacing between houses such that there's no unacceptable relationships either within the development or with existing development. Concerns have been raised by residents about the disruption with noise and traffic during the construction phase. This has been considered and can be adequately dealt with in the normal way with a construction management plan. Additional noise and disturbance is inevitable given the cul-de-sac location, but given the site is an allocation, the development could not be refused on that basis. Access parking and highways. In line with the allocation policy, access from Gaymore Close with additional access point from Welland Way. Junction improvements will be made at the junction of Gaymore Close and Mill Lane. In order to alleviate the issues with displaced road parking, as you've seen from the photograph, there are proposals to do works in the highway on Gaymore Close. The applicant proposes to provide for 4 off-road parking spaces within the area of the redundant turning head, and in providing the new road connection, they'll provide 4 dropped curbs to plots 7, 8, 9 and 10, allowing each of these to construct their own on-site parking should they wish. Existing highway parking arrangement is informal, and the applicant has done as much as possible to enable residents to have their own off-road parking. Highways have raised no objections subject to conditions. There's also adequate provision on the site for the new residents for parking. Flood risk and drainage. The development accords with the policy housing allocation and the requirements of policy ENV09. The suds basin is proposed, which will not contain water all the time. The foul waters to the main sewer and angling water are comfortable that it has capacity for the flows. Ecology, various surveys have been carried out, and these have been considered acceptable by the Council's ecology consultant, subject to conditions. Touching on trees and hedges, in accordance with the policy, most of the hedgerows are retained, other than 2 sections to provide the access road through. The tree officer is content with the proposals, and there's new native hedging proposed along the northern boundary and extensive planting within the new open space. So overall, members, the conclusion is that the proposal accords with the development plan and all material considerations and technical requirements, and therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions and Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, Councillor Askey, would you like to go first or last? Okay, fine. So we'll start with Keith Drury, please, who's the Vice Chairman of Banham Parish Council. You have 3 minutes, sir. Oh.
Good morning, Keith Drury, Banham Parish Council. I would like to summarise our views on this development. There are 3 main areas of concern. Look of the development. The whole nature of the development is totally unsympathetic with the surrounding area. The Breckland local plan clearly states that all developments should be in keeping and sympathetic with the locality. This development totally contradicts your own directive. They have no character, just resembling brick boxes and white rendered boxes. There are several developments in the village, completed and ongoing, which have been subject to strict rulings to meet the local plan directive and are a credit and improvement to the village. Why should this development not be subject to the same architectural control? Even the landscaping is minimal. I know you can't answer this at the moment in time, but please think hard before a decision is made realistically. Would any of you want to have a build of this description next door? We are not against development, but please ensure it's not a blot on our landscape. Traffic. We understand that all the relevant authorities have considered the aspects of traffic and safety, but what is on paper does not relate to what actually happens on the ground. Immediate access and exit from the development is okay, but then the trouble starts. All routes out of the village involve single-track roads or roads due to resident parking, they become single-track. The major road cause concern is Greyhound Lane itself, the obvious route to Attleborough and Norwich, in fact a designated sat-nav route. It is a single-track, 5 blind bends and is recorded at present by your own traffic count as 1,400 plus traffic movements per week. I think it could realistically be classed as a rat run. Added to this, the fact that the turnout from Greyhound Lane into the village is a blind turn. I'd be happy to meet with any of the planning committee and drive around the village to put the problem into reality. We were disappointed with the developer's attitude that anything outside the development was no concern. Greyhound Lane is designated as a quiet lane, or are the rules of that scheme of no relevance now? General infrastructure. Yes, the same arguments every village development are presenting. But again, facts and figures on paper do not reflect reality and often have been inaccurate and influencing detrimental decisions. Example, we have a small village school, approximately 105 places. I have families in the village even now having to take their children to 2 different schools miles apart. The sewage system not far from the development collapsed into the main road just the other month. What is this telling us about our sewage system? Our doctors are holding public meetings to try and alleviate public concern as to the capacity problems. To summarise, we're not against development, but please let it be in a suitable location and above all in keeping with the area. This development is neither of these. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I've got Kerry Bellham and then Verity Spencer. You've got 2 minutes each. Is that okay for you, ladies?
Yeah.
Okay, who's going first? Kerry?
Me, Kerry, yeah.
Okay, so it's Kerry Bellham who's an objector. 2 minutes, please.
There you go. What I wanted to do today was come here and attempt to stop this plan and permission, but I don't think anyone in this room is naive enough to believe that will happen. So I would like to instead suggest that the decision is postponed today, mainly because very rare bats have been recorded in the bat survey, and the survey was only actually valid until September 22. Then a new bat survey could be done, ideally very soon, as 2 surveys should ideally be spread out over the course of the season 2, May to September. There are also many issues with the plan and permission with regards to the framework of adopted core strategy and development control policies, such as flooding from surface runoff is an issue for this district. The Greyhound Lane residents are extremely concerned about this because they are much lower than the site. Protection of local services, the doctor's surgery is really struggling. We had a meeting with them on Thursday. There are currently no routine doctor's appointments available. Overlooking and privacy, the houses at end of Wayland Way will lose their privacy. We propose the bungalows here as per the first plans. Ensuring that new homes meet the requirements of a growing number of small or elderly households. Obviously there are bungalows, but there's only 2 two-bedroom houses going to be for sale. Affordable housing, 25% minimum, and these should be integrated into residential layouts so as to provide for a distribution within the development site that will enhance community cohesion. If you move the bungalows back to the edge of Wayland Way, this would also then incorporate those affordable houses more. The district are nowhere near their affordable housing target, more so because of sites such as the old Mellon Metal site going back on their affordable housing agreement, and also Breckland Bridge are here today to do the same for their Litcham sites. As per their statement, providing new homes for the benefit of the community across Breckland, can they put their money where their mouth is and do just that? Work with the residents group, the parish council, alongside Simon Wood and their agent, and discuss the following before permission is granted. A bat survey redone at correct times and ensuring that the equipment is in full working order. Agree the affordable housing figure. Affordable housing must have local connection requirements. Integrate these. Bungalows spread out to protect the loss and privacy. Developer contributions to go directly to healthcare, and the highway issues and the parking discussed further, Gamer and Wayland. We're not asking for a lot, just for the opportunity to work together to provide a better outcome for our existing community.
Okay, good morning, committee.
I apologise. We have Verity Spencer, please, 2 minutes.
Good morning. So since the local plan 2019 was put together, much has changed since, including the catastrophic flooding events of 2020, which flooded our homes. Albeit there will be an attenuation pond on the proposed site, there is nothing to prevent gravity. Since 2020, residents are still repeatedly being flooded due to the lack of maintenance of ditches, road gullies, an ageing sewage system, and the ever-increasing numbers of builds occurring without any of the village infrastructure being updated. In November 2022, one neighbour was flooded twice in just 1 week because of the above. Reports from those living in that area and elsewhere in the village are already reporting issues with foul water not being able to drain off, resulting in that water coming back into their properties. The report from Bidwell states that pre-act consultation with Anglian Water has confirmed there is capacity for the development's flows. The issue we take with this is as follows. Between November and December 2022 and since, Anglian Water have been carrying out surveys of their network due to the issues we are having in the village with flooding, foul water returns, and the pumping station on Wash Lane and elsewhere in the village are overflowing. Residents within the area of this development have also witnessed the pumping station near them overflowing. Initial surveys last year and during the first few months of this year, 2023, have indicated a large number of drains and other pipes are not documented on the Anglian Water surveys. These surveys have not yet been completed for the village, so how can the developers and Anglian Water claim the network can cope? They cannot, hence these surveys are ongoing. And just to confirm, the reason I know this is because I've been working with the manager of Anglian Water for our area, carrying out a number of works to establish where all those additional pipes are. And I'd like to just cover, just in the last few weeks, we've had 2 pipes hit that weren't on those surveys, resulting in water being overflowing to the roads. So we're seeking to work with the developers and other agencies to ensure the future of our village is safeguarded.
Thanks very much. Time's up, sorry. Okay, we have the agents now, which is Ian Hill, Martin Doughty and Nigel Robson. You've got 3 minutes. I'm not sure who's speaking, but just you, sir. You drew the short straw. Okay, your time starts as soon as your microphone's on.
Good morning. My name is Ian Hill from Bidwells, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. The proposals before you have been arrived at following consultation over a number of years, and the applicant has taken time to ensure that the comments raised by consultees have, where possible, been addressed. The proposals seek to deliver a high-quality development on land allocated for residential and open space within the adopted development plan. The layout and design have been subject to discussions with the case officer to ensure the creation of a sustainable development that creates a strong, vibrant and healthy community. A key element of the layout is the retention of the majority of mature hedgerow within the residential element of the scheme, and the careful location, scale, massing and orientation of the dwellings to prevent negative impacts on existing residents. The area of public open space provided will benefit existing and future residents of the village and is a significant feature of the scheme. The total area exceeds requirements of policy and includes provision for children's play space which can be used year-round. Whilst the development of any greenfield site for housing will inevitably result in a change to the appearance of the site and surroundings, a comprehensive landscaping scheme will be delivered which includes the planting of additional trees and hedgerows to create an attractive environment and provide a soft edge to the village. The development will provide 20% affordable housing. The provision of 20% affordable housing has been verified as viable by the Council's independent viability consultant. The mix of affordable housing has been discussed and agreed with the Council's Housing Enabling Officer to ensure it meets the local need. There are no objections to the proposals from technical statutory consultees. Anglian Water have confirmed that the Old Buckingham Water Recycling Centre has capacity to support the development. The highway and access strategy for the site is supported by Norfolk County Council. The proposed development will provide enhanced accessibility through the provision of formal and informal pedestrian links. Parking is provided in accordance with the county standards and provision will be made for EV charging points. To conclude, the proposal seeks to deliver a high-quality development on a site allocated in the adopted development plan. The proposals will be brought forward by Breckland Bridge, a company that has a proven track record of delivering within the district. In light of the above, I hope you feel able to endorse the recommendation of the officer and support the proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just switch you off. And we'll go over to Councillor Askew, please. 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning, members. We are all too aware of the massive housing programme in progress throughout the eastern counties and beyond. There is barely a road leading out of our market towns which hasn't got significant development occurring on it. Many villages are taking their share of this growth, some more than others. Members will be aware of the unrest this application has caused in Banham. It comes on top of a number of large-scale developments in the parish. Other speakers and correspondence received have alluded to the numbers and the impact it has on the other services. And while this council has no power over other service provision, nonetheless, it is a major problem in Banham, like every other rural community. Members have heard me state that I've always been an advocate for gradual growth in the rural communities, as it keeps villages vibrant and has a limited impact on services. I have concerns with this application, however, which are fourfold. 48 houses on top of the recent large-scale developments in Banham, alluded to previously, is not gradual growth, and the impact on services is significant. Greyhound Lane is a typical single-track country lane with several blind bends. A week-long traffic count taken less than a month ago, which I commissioned, shows a total just shy of 2,000 movements along Greyhound Lane. It's an average of approximately 300 movements a day. Basic maths suggests that this development would generate approximately 100 further vehicle movements. If half of these use Greyhound Lane twice a day, there will be an increase in traffic movement by 1/3. That's 400 movements a day. And I'm concerned that despite highway access and egress via Gamer Close and Mill Road, this will make little difference to the undoubted increase of traffic flowing through Greyhound Lane, as this is the most direct route to access the A11 via Quidnam and Snetterton. Members will see that this development will be serviced by a play area on the opposite side of Greyhound Lane. Any development design which makes children cross a highway with 400 plus vehicle movements a day, and these are conservative figures, members, in my mind is flawed. I have found no safe crossing area or facility in these plans, nor any proposal or recommendation for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit reduction from the Highway Authority, which I find troubling. I would request that any potential development here should honour the 25% affordable housing provision under policy HOU07 to at least allow some local opportunity to get on the housing ladder or remain in the locality. So to conclude, I hope that members will heed these concerns raised during your deliberations, and if in the event you feel compelled to grant permission, will apply suitable conditions to ensure a safe crossing facility and a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit for the sake of all. Thank you, members.
Thank you. It's open to questions from members. I have Councillor Attawell. Thank you.
Chairman, I'd appreciate your forbearance here because I have a number of questions I'd like to go through, please. I'll go through the easy ones first and hopefully officers can tick them off. I'll come to the more complicated ones. So the first thing I want to know is on this attenuation pond, I think I've read somewhere there's going to be a depth of water in there 1.2 metres at any one time as sort of the maximum. Is it proposed to have any railings around this basin, or is it just going to be open? I'm thinking about children crossing at that point. So I'd like to know that. The play area, I was slightly confused by the play area. Is there going to actually be play equipment provided as part of this or not? Because there was some confusion, I think, between what we've heard from the officer and what was in the report, because at one point that was said that Banham Parish Council didn't have any proposals for play equipment and therefore it wasn't going to happen because of the viability. So I just want to confirm that that is going to happen. Also, I couldn't read anywhere in the report that there was any NHS contribution. We've heard that there's problems with the doctor's surgeries. Unless I've missed it, I saw an education one, but not NHS. Were they consulted? Did they come back to us, NHS, with any proposals? Yeah, answer those and I'll come back with the others.
The NHS don't require a consultation on anything less than 50 dwellings. They don't respond to us on anything less than 50 dwellings. That's in their written agreement to us, so we don't consult them. And when we have consulted them in the past, they come back and they don't respond on 50 dwellings. The issues with the doctors is the number of doctors, and we can't require planning contributions to employ doctors or medical staff. We can only require contributions towards the facilities. So the issue is getting doctors to staff the doctors, not the actual facilities that are available. But no, there isn't an NHS contribution because they don't respond under 50 dwellings, which this is. With regards to the play area, there's a little bit of confusion there between outdoor sport and play space. I'll get there in a minute. So there will be equipment on site that will be set out in the Section 106 agreement for an open space scheme to be submitted after the application is approved, if it's approved. The issue in the report is about outdoor sport. So your open space policy requires outdoor sport facilities to be delivered on all developments. That has been assessed as officers, given the limited size of the development. It's not considered that it's viable to deliver outdoor sport on that area of open space to the south of the site. The policy then goes on to state that there is only required an off-site contribution whereby the parish council have viable deliverable schemes available for that contribution. They've been consulted on that basis and there is no deliverable schemes identified at this time, so there will be no outdoor sports contribution, but there will be play space on the site and laid out as required by an open space scheme, which is set out in the Section 106 agreement. Would it be okay, Councillor Attawell, if we ask the developers whether it's their intention to put boundary treatment around the attenuation as there is a condition? Sorry,
I've just double-checked that and I've just looked at the landscaping plan. There's not a fence around the attenuation basin. And I'm not really sure that one would be necessary because, as I said, there's not going to be water in there all the time. It's just in like really heavy rain, you'll get water in there and then it'll gradually flood away. So I'm not really convinced there's a need for a fence around it. Yeah, that just answers.
Microphone, please.
It's not like any attenuation basin I've seen because the water tends to sit in there for several days. Can I go on with my questions now? Thank you. Thanks for those answers so far. I would also just like, could you bring up the plan of the overall site showing the complete site layout on the screen, please? Is that all right? Okay, so we're told there's existing boundary treatment of hedges, trees, etc. around the site that are going to be retained, is that correct? So who is going to be responsible for maintaining those going forward? Is that going to be the individual householders or is there going to be some kind of management scheme under the Section 106 to maintain those going forward? And the same question goes really for the open space and the attenuation basin. Is the intention that we're seeking for the parish council to take those on in the 106, or has it already been determined that that's going to be a management agreement? If you'd like to answer those, then I'll come to the two big ones. Thank you.
Can I just say quickly, are you going to need the slideshow again? If not, I'll shut it down.
No, I don't think so.
Sorry, Councillor Attawell, if not the cameras don't pan round. So if the hedgerows form part of the rear gardens of the properties, then they will be responsible for them, and that's the hedgerow that runs through the centre of the site. But those hedgerows to the boundaries of the site, the open space, the SUDs, will all be covered by the maintenance fee and strategy, which is in the Section 106 agreement, and we have no identified end user for that. As you may or may not be aware, members, that in the Section 106 agreement, in our standard Section 106 agreement with regards to open space maintenance, there is a cascade system. So first they have to offer it to us as the local planning authority, whether we would like to maintain it. Secondly, to the town or parish council, which we always require them to do. And thirdly, if neither of those parties are interested, then they will need to set up a management company. They will pay the funds to us, and then we will transfer the funds back to that set up management company, who will then manage the site under an open space scheme, which will also need to be submitted as part of the Section 106 agreement.
Are there any funds? Because I thought I read somewhere that there wasn't going to be any, because of viability, there wasn't going to be any funds transferred with the land. Could you just clarify that before I come back?
there is an open space maintenance contribution that's been taken into account with the viability assessment. So it's just the maintenance contribution for the open space, which is the same with all developments.
Right, that's answered that one. Could we just talk a little bit about the housing numbers in Banham? Because when I go to the local plan, I'll find the allocation for Banham. We'll go to page 99 of the local plan. It said that there was allocations for 117 dwellings. Now, obviously, this constitutes 48 dwellings, which I think is part of that and that land. But I'm hearing that there's been substantial other development in Banham. Has that been since the local plan was adopted? And if so, could I have an update on those housing numbers, please? Because I'm concerned about cumulative effect in the parish. So if somebody could look at that. The other thing is, I'm going to come on to design now, because Councillor Askew made a very good point about the layout of the site. I think this is a terrible layout. I don't think we should be expecting children to cross a road to a play area. That play area provision should have been incorporated within the site where there's the housing. You know, what probably should have happened is, if you could design it, was the attenuation basin should have gone the other side of the road, and the play area should have been within the confines of the housing layout. I think that is a basic error in the design of this, and I can't support that on that basis. And also, when I come to Gen 02, could I just have some clarification on what is deemed to be white brick? Now, is that a white brick? Is that render, or is that some kind of buff coloured brick? Because if they're white bricks, and based on what I've seen of the design of these properties, this is entirely my subjective view, which I think is probably shared by the parishioners. It's hideous, absolutely hideous, and not at all in keeping with existing settlement within Banham. And I can't understand why we're letting that even come to this committee with such a poor design. I cannot see that's in keeping. We're going to build something with white brick. White render I've seen, but white brick? Can have some clarification on this Gen 02 and why we think that's such a good idea.
Well, this is the lovely thing about having you guys doing the barking and me sitting up here being nice and calm and quiet, is that I thought the same thing when I heard white brick. So I'd like a response, please, from the agents with regards to the reference to white brick, unless Barbara's got the answer. No, none of us have an answer.
No, well, it's not.
White brick.
It's not that I don't have an answer, but.
Oh.
It's just a design feature. We've got the architect here who can probably provide a bit more overview on the sort of design ethos behind it, but it's just a design feature. You know, so it's a very subjective approach.
Yes, Councillor Atwell.
So, Chairman, if you're going to build something with a white brick, are you going to have white cement, or is it going to be standard cement colour on this design? Because I would think if you're, I haven't seen white bricks. I've seen painted white bricks. If it's a white brick, I'd like to know what the cement colour is going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing's just going to look like it's made out of Lego bricks, which is even going to be more hideous.
Okay. Well, I don't want to get too caught up, but if the architect's here and prepared to answer this question, which will, as chairman, I'm entitled to ask for a response from that. I've seen very light grey bricks, but I've never seen a white brick, so I'm intrigued. If you'd like to press your microphone on.
Thank you. White bricks, so there will be white mortar or a putty-coloured mortar. The bricks aren't starkly white. There's a picture of them in the design access statement that was issued as part of the planning application, so you can clearly see that they are through-coloured mortar, and they are not a white brick, but they are a buff, a very light coloured brick. We've chosen that because in the past we've used painted bricks with Breckland Bridge on other properties, and that's proved to provide a very interesting and light contrast to the same colour palette throughout the whole of the developments. We've used the brick in this particular occasion because white painted brick or even render requires maintenance. And the idea of a white painted brick is that there is limited maintenance, but we provide that same kind of aesthetic. We've used it successfully in Norfolk and Suffolk, in rural areas on many, many occasions. And it's something that we believe is compatible and provides a new aesthetic in the area. But it's not unusual in rural locations.
Okay, thank you. I think the main difference was the fact we'd never heard it referred to as white brick. I think that's where we were getting caught up. But I agree with the buff, the light grey type thing. And yes, I'm not totally an alien with that particular item. Did you have any further questions? Because I've got another speaker.
Yeah, can you just clarify, because the gentleman just mentioned painted white brick.
No. He mentioned on other sites.
Painted white brick.
On other sites and at other times, but on this one he quite clearly said it would be a very light buff grey type.
So it's
brick.
not white, it's grey.
It's not white, which is where we've all got our items in a twist.
But with all due respect, that isn't what I've seen on any of the slides. You're asking, without seeing a sample of this, and I'm not aware that we've seen white brick anywhere. Buff coloured bricks, yes, but that's fundamentally different. I've got to say, Chairman, with that and the layout with regards to the children's safety crossing that road, I can't think that this complies with Gen 02. I think the principal development here is probably okay. I've got some real concerns about the quality of the design in terms to try and keep it more in keeping with the needs and aspirations of Banham residents. I don't think that's asking too much. That's me anyway.
Okay, well, we'll allow you to come back at the end. Let's just see where else we've gone. We've got Councillor Banbridge, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I won't rehearse anything that's gone before. There were a number of questions there. But there's one area where I am concerned. It was raised in particular by the residents, the local residents, and that is this issue of surface water flooding. Anglia Water, of course, have responsibility for foul water flooding, but it seems to me that Greyhound Lane has seen flooding in the past. I see there's an attenuation basin in there. Have you any idea what capacity that is in terms of inches of rainfall? Because that's quite important to us these days. Have we had that examined by a hydrologist or a water engineer? As the second question. And the third question, which is probably the most important, is where does the water from that go when the attenuation basin is full? Sorry.
So again, the site falls below the local lead flood authority thresholds for formal comment on the application. However, we have discussed the application with them at length. We know that the capacity of the SUDS, and I can't give it you in millilitres that you ask, is sufficient to meet the needs of the development, the runoff from the development and more. So that there will be sufficient capacity in the SUDS, and as with any SUDS, it will gather in that basin and slowly release back into the local network.
Can I come back on that? How does it release into the local network and where does it go to? That was the question, which I said was my most important question. How does it release from that and where does it go to?
Yeah, so it's SUDS, so it's sustainable urban drainage system, so it's a natural drainage system, so it doesn't then go back into the network. It drains into the wider soil network. It's a SUDS system.
Are you happy with that response, or would you like to add to that? I will allow it.
Good morning. My name's Martin Doughty. I work for Richard Jackson's. I designed the drainage system. The infiltration system is not an attenuation basin, it's an infiltration basin. So the water is collected through a series of pipes, permeable paving across the site. It deals with the pollution hazard indices in relation to the SUDS manual. The water is collected. It goes through an initial forebay, which collects any other solids or hydrocarbons or anything else, as every SUDS system should. That could be maintained very easily. The water then infiltrates and goes through into the wider infiltration basin, which you've seen on your scheme, and infiltrates into the ground. There is no discharge off the site into any other pipe network. To answer Councillor Attwell's question earlier on, if I may, about the depth of the basin and what it accounts for, the drainage system is designed for a 1 in 100 year event, or 1% annual equivalent probability, and it also accommodates at least 40% additional rainfall to allow for future climate change in accordance with policy. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Before I go back to Councillor Attwell, anyone else wishing to ask a question? Oh yes, I've got Councillor Clark and then Councillor Kittle-Morris. I'll come back to you, Councillor Attwell.
I'll try and make this brief, Chairman. Being the third councillor to speak, some of my questions already that I would be asked by Councillor Attwell and Councillor Banbridge. My query, again, is probing further around the surface water management issue, which obviously I know one of the objectors raised, and this is reality we're dealing with. I appreciate this is below the threshold for a formal comment from the county flood management team, and whilst the Anglian water, say in terms of the foul water, there's capacity, they have said that the proposed method of surface water management, we're talking about runoff, doesn't relate to their assets. We can't provide comments on suitability of surface water management. So we talked about the SUDS, and there's information there about the play area not getting flooded, but I'm concerned because we don't have a formal comment in there from a statutory consultee here. I know the officer said, Rebecca said, we've got that assurance from the county, but I'm just trying to contrast that with the reality of what's happened, as we know, in various parts of Norfolk, Dereham, elsewhere, Toffwood, in terms of flooding. When we come up against incomplete information, etc., we can only go on the information we've got at the time, but that's one of my particular concerns at the moment, which hasn't yet been assuaged, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kittle-Morris, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's, to do with the flooding issue, I know the local lead flood authority didn't respond particularly to this because it's this application because the number of houses is too few. However, I'm concerned that the residents are saying there is flooding. I'm just wondering whether the officers did inquire with the local lead flood authority whether any flooding was reported, because I know from my wider experience with a number of villages that actually flooding isn't reported, and when something like this comes up, oh, it always floods. If it isn't actually reported to the local lead flood authority, houses flooding particularly, if a house is flooded, the local lead flood authority have to investigate why it was flooded, and actually, if it hasn't been reported, then why not? So there's a kind of a bit of a disparity, but did officers, my question is really, did officers actually speak to the local lead flood authority and find out whether any flooding had been actually reported last year or the year before?
I'm just working out in my head how to answer that. So we did speak to the LLFA about the development. I think, you know, just to be really clear before I answer your question, if that's okay, we do have policies and policy guidance produced by the lead local flood authority, and we have guidance within the NPPF and PPG about how we deal with flood risk and how we consider flood risk from new development. And I'd like to make the point here that you can only consider the flood risk generated from this development, not the existing situation within the local area, in your determination of this application. So you can only consider what is generated from this development, not the existing circumstance. Just to be really clear, that your current policy requires you to follow the SUDS hierarchy, which is first with a sustainable drainage system, which is where we're at with this development. And that sustainable drainage system works for the capacity of the development, which is what it's required to do. And that takes into account the groundwater, the amount of groundwater, the infiltration, and all the other matters which we would take into account when assessing a surface water drainage system. So I appreciate that I've spoken to them without the matter, and we have followed the sustainable drainage hierarchy, and we are right at the top of that hierarchy with this development. With regards to reporting of incidents, this is usually set out in the FRA. I haven't read the FRA cover to cover, and as we have the gentleman here, he might be able to shed some light on that. Is that okay, Chairman?
By all means.
As I said earlier, we designed the drainage system to accommodate, and as you heard from your officers, that's what we're required to do under policy. The infiltration basin could not be put on the other side of Greyhound Lane for technical issues, to answer the other question that was raised earlier. In relation to existing flooding, that is not covered by our assessment. It's not deemed to be an issue that was required to be assessed for the drainage system for this development to provide a safe and sustainable drainage system to accommodate the water flow and climate change from this development.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions? Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a little bit confused here. If this system, the whole building system has been designed for this water to go into this, I'll call it a little reservoir, so it's not really affecting the flooding from anywhere else as far as I can see. Is that correct, or have I got that wrong? Is that water that collects in that going to go to where the other flooding is, or is this holding the water and that slowly releases it? Because I'm getting a bit confused here. If there's flooding in the village somewhere else, I can't see if this reservoir is holding the water but not putting it into the other system. I can't see how that can flood if that's not going, if you understand where I'm coming from. I'm a bit confused at the moment because we've got a lot of flooding going on, but if this reservoir is to take all the water but not put it into the system what's already there, I can't, that's what I'm a bit confused. Could I just have a bit of clarification, please?
You're going to have to come and sit up here if you're coming another time. If you sort of got your head round that. Please do. No, we need clarity.
Okay. If you look at the flood risk assessment I prepared, you will see that there is a reasonable amount of surface water flooding, overland flow that goes through the centre of Banham from the ditch system that goes through the centre of Banham. Some of that goes and is on the site plan, not the flooding, sorry, the location of that is shown on the site plan. That is separate, surface water overland flow from the ditch system existing, absolutely separate from the drainage system I have designed for this system, for this development. Okay, so that's completely separate. The water that comes from the development and the proposals of the impermeable areas goes to the SUD systems. There's sufficient storage on the site to accommodate that flow in extreme events, plus the required climate change allowances in accordance with local LLFA and national guidance. I could spend hours talking about it, but hopefully that clarifies your question. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I think we're okay there. I've got Councillor Land, and then I'll go back to Councillor Atwell.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of the objectors had their hands up to answer a question then. I don't know if you can refer it back to them.
No, how we work here is I'm allowed the drainage engineer to speak because he's a qualified drainage engineer. The other people are residents and Vice Chairman of Parish Council. If you feel there's a question that they're capable of answering, you're entitled to ask them. But up until then, I do not take an unauthorised comment from a resident. No disrespect, ladies or gentlemen. but this is a qualified drainage engineer, and we were asking questions on drainage. This is the opportunity when you have to be really wily and ask them something that you really wanted to ask them, and I will make sure they don't try to expand on it. If you're not ready, I'll hand over to Councillor Attewell.
Okay, I'll ask you, why were you raising your hands? What issues did you
No, that's not the question I want. Thank you very much. Anyway, I don't think it's going to help the issue. I cannot take an unqualified statement, but you could ask any question with regards to how they gave their presentation forward. I'm not being unfair, but I cannot have unsolicited answers. Councillor Attewell, please.
Can I just clarify this basin? So am I right in saying that there's no crate system on site as per normal SUD system? So you're just looking for solely percolation through the bottom of this basin for the water to disappear? I think that's what you're saying. You can just nod or shake your head. Is that right?
It's a little more complicated than that, but in essence,
right.
Yes.
If you could use your microphone, please. Switch yours off, please, Ken.
In essence, you are correct, but there are further SUDS features upstream before it gets to the forebay and the basin to accommodate water, permeable paving and other storage systems within the development, but essentially then the water then goes to the basin and infiltrates into the ground, yes.
So the water that's going into the basin, is that just going in at gravity rate, or is that held back somewhere in the system through a hydro brake system, something like that, to limit the flow? And obviously, if this water, if the main percolation is going to be through that basin rather than dissipating down into a crate system, that would suggest to me that that water's going to sit there for some time, hence why I was asking the question about railings around the basin. And you also made the comment that you couldn't put the basin on the other side of the road for technical reasons. I'd like to know what they are, or is it just purely it was more expensive to do it that way, which is what there's nothing that can't be fixed from a technical perspective, but cost is everything, I'm guessing.
Okay, I'm going to move on. I think we've had a lot of questions answered. I think I'm probably right in saying that the system that's in place wipes its own face with regards to the application. So it's not going to cause any detriment to anything existing.
It's not on the other side of the road.
Okay, and we've had to explain why it's not on the other side of the road. I'm not saying I don't want to hear it anymore, but I think we keep going around in circles if we're not very careful. I'm going to take Councillor Kybird, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Paragraph 7.5 of the Officer report spells out the answers to half the questions we've had and wish people would read their agendas.
Thank you. I'm glad that came from you. Good. Okay. Any further questions from members? Councillor Attewell.
I would just point out that as a member of the committee, I'm perfectly entitled to ask the questions in the public forum, which is what I choose to do.
Thank you, boys. Behave yourselves.
Before we vote, we need to clear
Hang on. I know. Councillor Banbridge.
Well, I was going to say, Chairman, I asked a question about the attenuation, and actually Becky answered it in 2 or 3 simple words. She said this is an infiltration and not an attenuation survey, and that answered the question completely. And if that's so, and it was confirmed by the engineer, then I think that is that problem solved. May well be other problems, but that one.
Okay, thank you. Becky, Rebecca, you want to just square up with something and then we can move on to the vote?
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to pass to Barbara a bit, but one of the matters that the neighbours raised was about the ecology report on the bat survey, and we just wanted to clear that up for members. We were sort of waiting for it to come up, but it didn't come up, so we'd like the opportunity to clear that up. So essentially, there is a BAT survey submitted with the application. Still talking, Barbara, sorry. There is a BAT survey submitted with the planning application. At the beginning of the BAT survey, it sets out the dates that the survey was undertaken and the date of the actual survey, and then in very small text on that, it says that it needs to be reviewed after 12 months. And then at the bottom of the ecology survey, it sets out the conclusions for the BAT survey. Just to let you know, we spoke directly with our ecologist who, as you're aware from the report, raised no objections to the application on the basis of the conclusions of that report. What they were really clear to say is, yes, that sentence is in there that it should be resurveyed in 12 months, but that's if the ground conditions change, so the site changes in any way. There's been no changes to the site since the survey works have taken place, i.e. no building works, no ground works, etc. And therefore the report remains valid and our ecologists remain to have no objections subject to the conditions that are outlined in the report. So just to be really clear on that matter that was raised by the neighbouring properties. Thanks very much, members.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to take the vote now. So on this allocated site in Banham, which is 3PL 2022-0247F, your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? And those against? 6-4. This is approved. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. I'm going to take just a short 10-minute recess so we can just grab a coffee and go to the lavatory and whichever. And so we'll start back looking at that clock about between 10 and 5-2. So we've got 10 plus minutes. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a few more items to go, so if you could take your seats, please. Yeah, go for it. We'll start with them standing up. If you could please take your seats, Councillor Banbridge. That's okay? I had to name and shame you, but never mind.
Name and shame.
Sorry, I was waiting for you and you were waiting for me. Sorry. Do apologise, a bit of confusion there. We are live streaming, and we have been while we've all been sitting there in silence. So our next item is item 188, which is Litcham. We're going to take that one first, but if we get our speakers here ready for the other two as well. So if we've got Ian Hill, Nigel Robson and Craig Driver, if you'd like to come and sit on the right-hand side, we'll be ready to proceed. There's three items at Litcham, but we're going to take them individually. So 3OB 2022-0011 OB, and Rebecca's going to detail that one for you, and then we'll go on to the other items, which I will call out when we're ready to do. Over to you then, please, Rebecca.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application at Litcham is an application to vary the affordable housing provision to reduce that provision from 40% as set out in the Section 106 agreement, which equates to 6 dwellings, to 12.5%, which equates to 2 dwellings. So the application relates to 2 outline planning applications that have already been granted planning permission. Each of those outline planning applications are for 8 dwellings. And members may recall the site from a fairly recent condition where we looked at providing the suds and the open space in between those 2 linear developments of 8 dwellings, but obviously I've got some site plans to show you. So here's the site in the wider context. Here's the location plan of one of the outline applications. You can see that linear development to the south of the application site and running behind the back of the properties that are fronting onto Weasingham Road. And then the further application for 8 dwellings, remembering that there are 2 separate outline applications that we've already approved for outline dwellings running along the back of dwellings that front onto Wellingham Road. And here's the site again in the wider context. So our current policy requirement is for affordable housing provision at 25%. However, the previous outline applications were permitted with 40% set out in the Section 106 agreement. The applicant has obviously applied to reduce the affordable housing provision to 12.5% following discussions with officers. With regards to the relevant policy, in this regard, members, that's policy House 7 of the local plan. That's your affordable housing policy. The local plan policy does allow for reductions in affordable housing. However, it is quite clear in its content that those must be accompanied by an open book viability assessment. And that is specifically related where the affordable housing target can't be met. And this element of policy House 07 is supported by paragraph 58 of the MPPF, which does allow for viability to be assessed at application stage. So a viability assessment as set out in the officer report has been submitted with the application, and it has been independently reviewed and assessed by our independent viability assessment, CP Viability consultant, who agrees that the site is not viable to deliver 40% affordable housing. They then create an exercise reducing the affordable housing element down slowly, including reviewing it at 25% in accordance with our current adopted planning policy. Although the site isn't viable to deliver either 40%, 25%, they did consider that the site was viable to deliver 2 units across the 2 sites together, and that the applicants have agreed on this basis to deliver those 2 sites and to reduce the affordable housing provision to 2 dwellings is considered acceptable. And this is also supported by a housing enabling officer taking into consideration the viability appraisal, the independent appraisers advice, and obviously policy house 7 of the local plan. Just for information, members, but this is obviously set out in your report, the Parish Council have objected to the application, as well as 3 neighbouring properties raising concerns about the loss of affordable housing, and also that this should be compensated by the delivery of open space across the site, so additional open space. The applications, just for your information, are policy compliant with regards to the open space, and this is set out as a requirement in the Section 106 agreement. And given that the viability situation with the site, it would be unreasonable to reassess the open space on this basis, i.e. that it complies with policy already. This matter is further discussed in the reserved matters applications, which you will hear after this application once we've debated and voted on it. So with regards to this application, the application is recommended for approval as it is considered compliant with policy house 7 of the Breckland local plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Our various gentlemen here are there to answer questions, so they're there for you to ask if you wish. But it's open to questions from members, and I've got Councillor Kittle-Morris first, please.
Thank you, Chairman. My village, I live in Litcham, so I know the site quite well. I travel up there occasionally. Of course, the outline application was approved in 2018 with a 40% policy in place for affordable housing. And of course that changed in 2019 to 25%. I'm afraid we're going to get more and more of these reductions in affordable housing content in developments, only because of the extraordinary rise in the material costs and labour costs that the building industry is undergoing. And I think that's not anything that's due to worldwide problems, and I don't think anybody else in the world is having much problem with it. I will say that Litcham has 65 social rented houses in its housing stock at the moment, and I think that's quite a lot in terms of 400 people living in the village in terms of number of voters, and when I inquired on the housing register as to how many people wanted to live in Litcham in affordable housing, it was 4. So I'm going to support this application as a local member on the basis of that. The only thing I would like to ask the applicants is whether both those houses, affordable houses, will go on the same site, or whether they'll be split one to each one.
We should have it defined which are which. Yes, please.
So in the context of this application, the Section 106 requires you to submit an affordable housing scheme with the reserved matters application. However, you're about to hear the reserved matters application, so usually I'd be saying that information is to come with the reserved matters, but you're about to hear that. So instead of splitting the dwellings, they will be provided on one of the sites, but they will equate to the 2 required affordable units per the sites, and we're updating the Section 106 agreement to ensure that they are delivered.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bambridge, please.
Well, I was going to say I would normally not be happy with a reduction in the number of affordable houses, but I believe the case has been made on this. I know it's been well discussed outside of this meeting and elsewhere, but we're only within this meeting, and I think it is acceptable. I would commend to my colleague that he considers if Litcham does have a problem, and that is to go for an exception site in addition to this. I did just want to raise the matter of drainage as well. I will, you'll find, be obsessed with drainage as we go on. But the thing about Litcham is where we get the heaviest rainfall in Norfolk historically. It is right on the edge of the wettest place, which is just south of Fakenham, and I do. North Sea. And I do just want to be assured that officers consider the drainage to be adequate, and that's all I'll say on
that. Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak at all? Oh, well, if it's a question. Is it a question, Vice Chairman?
Yeah. I don't agree with obviously the reduction in the social housing. Because I worked with Gordon when he, back in the day when it was portfolio holder. We realised 40% was abnormal. Now it seems 25% is as well, with, like I said, with the building costs and everything else. Is there any green money-saving features going into these properties, which is obviously putting the costs up again, and then that's obviously another reason why the viability will be brought down less for the social housing, because that can be an
yes,
issue.
Yes, please answer that. Thank you, Tony.
Yes, to answer the question, all the houses are to be Grade A standard. There's EV charges in them all and those sorts of things. So there are environmental aspects of them which do put up the cost a little bit. But in terms of the assessment, some of those are not, or those are largely ignored.
Okay. Councillor Kittle-Morris again, please.
A question, please, Chairman. What tenure are the affordable houses going to be? Are they going to be handed over to a registered provider, or are they going to be mixed, social, rented, or are they going to be part owned or whatever?
Yeah. Have you got that at the moment or not? Because it's obviously subject to Section 106.
I think we've proposed that one should be an affordable rent and one should be a starter home, it's now called, isn't it? Or first home, which is shared ownership.
Super. Okay, thank you. 3OB 2022 0011 OB at Litcham. Your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 2, 8B, 3PL 2022-0371D at Litcham, and also item 3.8C, which is 3PL 2022-0340D. And we've got Matthew delivering this one, please, both on the site, same site at Litcham. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, councillors. So what I'm going to be doing is delivering one presentation, but for two reserve matters applications. So the first one is 3PL 2022-0371/D, and this is Landorf Weasenham Road, and this is for the erection of 8 dwellings following planning permission, outline planning permission, which was granted for 3PL 2018-0694/0, and the discharge of planning obligation of affordable housing part 1 conditions 1.1.1 and 1.1.2. Sorry, just to go back, and this is, Landorf Weasenham Road. Okay, so this is the overall site here. And this is Weasenham Road, so we're going to be focusing in on this section here. So just to confirm that there are 8 plots, so this is plots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 along here. And this is just the site in the wider context. So this is the existing site plan. So as you can see, you've got residential dwellings here, and you've also got a cul-de-sac close here as well. And then here is the proposed site plan. So just to confirm, I will show elevations of the house types in the next couple of slides, but we've got plots 1 and 2, and these will represent house type 9, and these are single-storey bungalows. We've got plots 3 and 4, and these are house type 6, and this is a 2-storey dwelling, and then plots 5 to 8, they're also 2-storey dwellings, and these are house type 5. So this is house type 5, so this is a 3-bedroom red brick 2-storey dwelling. This is house type 6, so this is a 2-bed 2-storey dwelling. And then this is house type 9, so this is a 2-bed single-storey bungalow. And then this is just it within the context of the street scene. So as you can see, you've got the 2 the 2 bungalows here, and then you've got the 6 other residential dwellings, 2-storey dwellings here. And then, as you can see, these are this is the road, and this is the access here as well. And this is just some site photos. So this is the existing access looking into the site, and then this is just looking towards the other site that will be situated here. And as you can see, there's residential dwellings along there. This is looking out onto the road. And then this is just to give an understanding on what the existing context of the local character and appearance and the character of the area is. So this application is recommended for approval. Okay, and then the next one is 3PL 2022-0340/D, and then this is Landor Wellingham Road, which is situated along here. And then this is for the reserve matters following the approval of 8 dwellings following outline planning permission for 3PL 2018-0698/0, and then the discharge of the planning obligation relating to affordable housing for the S106 agreement. So again, you've got the site location plan here, and this is Wellingham Road. This is the access into Wellingham Road, and this time we've got 4 semi-detached buildings, and these will constitute 8 dwellings, and these will all be 2-storey. So, and this is the site in the wider context. And then this is the existing site plan as it is currently. And then this is the proposed site plan. So you've got plots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So plots 1, 2, 3, and 4, they are going to be house type 6, which I'll show again on another slide. And then plots 5 to 8 are going to be house type 1, and I'll show this on another slide as well. So this is actually house type 1. So this is a 2-storey red brick 3-bedroom dwelling. And then you've got house type 6, which is a 2-bed 2-storey dwelling. And then this is just it within the street scene. So you can see you've got plots 1 and 2 here. This is the existing access. Plots 3 to 8, and then you've also got detached and semi-detached garages for plots 5 to 8, and then this is the where the other residential dwellings will be. Just to note, with both applications, the principal elevations will front. These are the principal elevations. And then just some site photos. So this is looking down Wellingham Road, and as you can see, these are the existing dwellings, so it just gives an understanding of the context of the character of the area. And then also looking down Wellingham Road again. This is looking into the site access, and then Weasenham Road is this side. And then this is just as you come in with the existing site access. So again, this one is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. On this item, well, there's 2 items. We're allowing 3 minutes because you wish to speak on this item, I gather. Okay, if you'd like to press your mic on and have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Committee. My name is Craig Driver. I'm from Hooper's Architects, and we're part of a consultant team working on behalf of Breckland Bridge. The application before you today seeks the approval of reserve matters following the outline approval of the 2 sites of land off Weasenham Road and Wellingham Road. Each site seeks approval for 8 dwellings. The principle of the development has already been established for both sites with an outline approval. The applications for reserve matters seeks approval of key architectural features of layout and amenity, design appearance, scale and materials, and as well as landscape. The design approach creates appropriate, well-designed, well-proportioned dwellings that specifically address the site with regards to scale, materiality, light and space, and preservation of existing open spaces, existing trees, and enhanced permeability and connectivity through the site. The layouts are a result of extensive discussions with planning officers where a number of dwellings and the site layout options were discussed, resulting in the layouts and officers' recommendations put forward to you today. The new access roads into the site terminate in a cul-de-sac arrangement with a turning head to allow vehicles to enter and leave the site in a forward motion. The turning heads then transition into private drives, giving access to the new dwellings, laid out in a linear arrangement which replicates the existing pattern and layout in this location. The proposed single-storey dwellings behind Litcham Close have been designed and placed to both harmonise with the adjacent close whilst navigating the requirements of flood and easement zones. The separation distances achieved between the new and existing dwellings is acknowledged by the officer as being sufficient, do not cause harmful overlooking, and therefore do not present an unacceptable impact on amenity. The ridge heights of the detached and semi-detached units are deliberately kept low. This has been achieved by partially accommodating rooms within the roof space, and the bungalows also follow a similar format and have a low-lying appearance. Simple dormer windows have been employed to the front elevations, providing a subtle and contemporary approach to the street scene. The proposed use of traditional materials of brick, timber, clay and slate tiles has been inspired by the locality and chosen for their quality and appropriateness to a rural village setting. All of the rainwater goods will be galvanised, metal dam pipes and gutters, and the adoption of clip verges removed the use of plastic products from the exteriors of the house and promotes new low-maintenance requirements. As far as the landscape is concerned, the clear consideration has been given to maintaining the open countryside feel that characterises the existing site, and the retention of trees and boundary enhancements have been met with the approval of the officers. The average density of plots on the site is similar in size to those surrounding, and has been kept relatively low, allowing for a high percentage of the site to remain as a public green space. The proposal maintains the historic rear access routes for existing dwellings fronting Wellingham Road, and this maintains and enhances permeability through and across the site, and is a theme that continues with the new footpath provision, providing safer access to the school and village centre beyond. The proposals are reported to be acceptable by the Council's planning officers, and we therefore urge the committee to support their recommendations for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's open to questions from members at all. Any questions you wish to ask? I've got Councillor Wilkinson and then Councillor Bambridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the information for members before 2019, we did have a site visit to these sites, and I must admit that will enhance that area. Local residents seem to be happy with it, adjoining residents, and I think it's one of the better small developments I've seen come towards this committee.
Thank you. Councillor Bambridge.
Yes, I think I heard the architect correctly, but I'm not absolutely certain. Can I be assured that the existing footpath across the site will be the one that's either enhanced or will remain in place for members of the general public not living on the site?
Yes, that's correct.
Councillor Kittle-Morris.
Just a quick question on accessibility to dustbin lorries. Is that road capable of taking a Breckland dust cart to pick up the wheelie bins, or do they have to wheel them out all the way to the main road?
No, it's been designed to take the dustbin lorries. You don't have to wheel them out to the main road.
Any other questions from members before I take this to a vote? No. Okay, thank you. So with these, can't take them together, can I? No. You're such an old meanie. Okay, so we're going to take 8B, 3PL 2022-0371D at Litcham. Your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? And 8C, 3PL 2022-0340D. Again at Litcham, your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? That's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. That's all approved. Okay, we're going to move swiftly on to our last item for today, our item 5-9D, 3PL 2023-0419 LB, listed building at Thetford, 30 Raymond Street. And that's you, Rebecca. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chairman. So we're at 30 Raymond Street. You may recall an application on this site before. This is a listed building consent application only. This is the site location plan showing number 30 outlined in red for you. Here is the site in relation, it is within the, oh, I'll put my teeth back in. The site is within the Thetford, I still can't say it, Thetford settlement boundary, but it's also within the Thetford town centre boundary as well. That's what that purple line on the map is showing you there, apologies. And the blue arrow is just to show the building to the south of the site, and it's marked in red because it's a listed building and it lies within the conservation area. Sorry, I got there in the end. It's just the aerial view, just to show the L-shaped building within the wider contents. Members may recall that we permitted this application to change to a HMO. It is a council. The council have an interest in this building, so that's why you're hearing it today. Basically, the building is L-shaped and fronts the highways, and then there is an area of hard standing to the rear to accommodate car parking. This is the frontage of the building, just to show the frontage of the building off Raymond Street. And this is the rear of the building where the works of the application are to relate to, and it is those works that run along the ridge of the building, so on the gable, the ridge of the building. So this is a listed building consent for external works to repair this rear wall. You'll note my use of repair there. Generally, works of repair don't require listed building consent. However, there will be some new renewal works, and the extent of those works won't be fully known until the works are commenced, and that's what's set out in the work strategy. And therefore, we have required a listed building consent application to ensure that those works are covered and not started without requiring one at a later date. You'll note from the officer report that Thetford Town Council support the application, as does the historic building officer, once we had some additional information submitted. And on that basis, regarding that the works will ensure the long-term survival of the building, having special regard to preserving the significance of this listed building and the schedule of works that have been provided as requested by the historic buildings officer, the works will ensure the longevity of this building and will not harm the special interest or significance of the listed building. And on that basis, we've recommended this one for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask Rebecca what sort of mortar will be used in the repairs? Thank you.
I'm going to say lime.
You heard it here. Okay, any other further questions? No, you're all happy. Okay, so on this item, which I'm on the wrong page, is 3PL 2023-0419, listed building, is in Thetford. Your officer's recommendation is one of approval, as you've heard. Could I have a show of hands, please? And that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. So our next item is item 10, which are applications determined by the Deputy Chief Executive. And for your information, on page 114.
There's hands up, there's hands up.
Oh.
I'd just like to record the fact that there's a reserved matters application by Kybird Builders under item 10, in which I would have an interest.
Ah, okay. And Councillor Kittle-Morris?
Mike.
Sorry, can you microphone? I'm struggling to hear you from there. Microphone, please.
A couple of points to raise, if I may, while the top table's still there.
You did. I'm not getting rid of them. Do you want to come right at the end? I'm just going to clear this other appeals summary off. So that was application determined by a Deputy Chief Executive, of which Councillor Kybird has made statement to. And also item 11 is the appeals summary for your information on 154. Do you wish to cease streaming?
Yes, fine.
Yep, okay.